Hello and welcome to our low carbon transport session, and a welcome back to those of you who joined our oil and gas transition and the advanced manufacture sessions. ESP set up our automotive training network in 2016, and this afternoon you will hear about different policies, industry views and how ESP are working to fill different skills gaps within the low carbon sector. First up is Chris McGee, Senior Policy Advisor for the Low Carbon Directorate at Transport Scotland.
Hello, I'm Chris McGee and I work in Transport Scotland. Today I'd like to tell you about how we're developing a baseline of potential skills gaps in transport and how we're working across Scottish partners to ensure a plan of action for the future. My role involves developing a sound understanding of the skills required to support the transition towards zero emission mobility and working collaboratively with others to ensure that these skills exist or that are being developed. Transport is the highest carbon emission sector of the economy, with about a third of all emissions coming from one form of transport or another. So it makes sense that Scotland has ambitious targets to reduce emissions from transport. And one of these targets is to eliminate the need for new petrol and diesel cars and vans by 2030, and that's only 9 years from now. To do that, it's important that people in Scotland believe that when they buy an electric vehicle, whether it's a brand new one or a second-hand one, possibly with the assistance of an interest-free loan from Transport Scotland through the Energy Savings Trust, they need to be assured that when something goes wrong with that vehicle or it needs maintained, that service is available. And that service will only be available if we have a workforce trained to work safely on electric vehicles. And that's why we commissioned research to provide a sound evidence base about the skills required to support the mass uptake of low carbon cars and vans in Scotland. The research aimed to establish the extent to which Scotland has or is developing the skills necessary to support the transition to electric cars and vans, as well as the barriers to developing those skills and the specific areas that needed support. The skills areas that we considered were electric vehicle sales, repair and maintenance skills, as well as those for charge point maintenance. We were very keen to ensure that we considered the views of a range of people working in the skills arena for the research. So we arranged for a steering group consisting of representatives from Skills Development Scotland, the Scottish Motor Trade Association, the Institute of the Motor Industry, ESP and Scottish Enterprise to guide and support the research. And working in such a collaborative way has helped ensure that skills development organisations as well as skills accreditation bodies and industry can identify at an early stage where the skills gaps are and where skills need to be developed. The findings from the research have been used to feed into the Climate Emergency Skills Action Plan and to guide activities on the promotion of skills development opportunities for people working in the automotive industry. And the final report is available on Transport Scotland's web pages. We've also been working in collaboration with ESP to support them to build the capacity and capability in Scottish colleges to deliver training to automotive engineers so they can work safely on electric vehicles. We want to make sure that not only are they working safely with these vehicles, but where possible their businesses are benefiting from the transition to a low carbon mobility economy. And I believe that Roddy Scott from ESP will tell you more about that project later. This year we've been turning our attention to the skills required for the transition to low carbon heavy duty vehicles. They produce about 12% of emissions from transport, so their contribution to Scotland's carbon emissions is significant. And those emissions may well go up as the number of trips are forecast to increase in the years to come. There are another couple of reasons why we focused on heavy duty vehicles. Firstly, a target to remove the need for new petrol and diesel heavy vehicles by 2035 was included in the Climate Change Plan update in December 2020. And the decarbonisation of heavy duty vehicles is also essential if Scotland is to meet its target of being net zero by 2045. Having the skills to make that transition, and equally as importantly, maximising any opportunities to make a just economic benefit from it, is vital. Again, we worked with skills development and accreditation bodies as well as the representatives from heavy duty vehicle operators to help guide and support the research. The research has just recently been completed and the report will be published on Transport Scotland's website. The findings and recommendations from the report will indicate what skills gaps and shortages should be addressed. And there are several key points from the research which will help guide our skills development in this area, including indications of the timescales of when certain skills will be required. Now that's really useful as it will assist our understanding of the anticipated demand for various types of low carbon propulsion systems such as battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell for heavy duty vehicles and when the skills to support these vehicles will be required. The report will also provide an indication of any skills gaps or shortages for the production of or in the supply chain for low carbon heavy duty vehicles in Scotland. This is especially important as we seek to ensure we have the skills to maximise any economic benefit from high value manufacturing work. There's a lot of work to do to address the findings in the report. However, it does provide a thorough evidence base for developing the skills that will be needed to transition to low carbon heavy duty vehicles. And I will continue to work with representatives from skills development and accreditation bodies, as well as enterprise agencies and industry representatives to see how we can best collaboratively take those recommendations forward. So please check out Transport Scotland's website to see the reports that I mentioned and for further information about a transport transition that works for all. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Chris. Now we have Steve Schofield, who's the Head of Business Development at the Institute of Motor Industry.
Hi everyone, I'm Steve Schofield, Head of Business Development at the IMI, and I'd like to share the collaboration which has been going on in Scotland to facilitate electric vehicle skills in the automotive sector. The work started with a collaboration on skills baseline research, which gives us kind of the facts, as it were. So the ultra low emission vehicle skills baseline study, which was directed at the light vehicle sector, but also first responders that operate on our roads. And this particular research indicated 65,000 people in the sector in Scotland will require upskilling to meet the electrification ambition of the government. So some work to do. In addition to that particular research, there's another study that's going on right now, which will be published in October 2021. And this focuses on the heavy duty vehicle sector. So a really important part of the Scottish infrastructure. So the skills baseline on that will be available very shortly. But phase one, how did we go about unpicking some of the barriers to the challenge we have of upskilling all of those people? A world-class training and qualification infrastructure was needed, and we think that's what we've achieved. And that started with the installation of safe EV learning hardware, software and e-learning. This is critical in that learning environment as mistakes are made in the early part of training. So it's critical that we do that in a safe way, not on live high voltage vehicles. So that was a critical part. And the Scottish Government departments, the colleges have worked really closely together to ensure that some of that equipment is now available for both training of trainers and assessors, but also for the students downstream. So the second phase was to train and qualify teachers, trainers and assessors, absolutely critical in developing the sector. So without these in place, the skills system just wouldn't work. And what we've managed to do is not just train and assess those assessors, but they've become qualified, IMI qualified and IMI professionally registered and have tech safe recognition, which I'll talk about later. So this has been a really important part of the process. So once we had all that in place, the training programs and the collaboration that happened between government, IMI and the sector, we was in a good place to start expanding that out. So what we did, we've extended the IMI approved centre approach. So we have more Scottish colleges, more private training providers in Scotland now able to offer EV training and IMI qualifications. And on that journey, at every opportunity, we've leveraged industry support and worked in partnership with people like SMTA, so that on the journey, not only are we upskilling the training sector, but we start to feed in some of that critical communications to the sector to understand what they need to do and what's coming. So some thought leadership from the collaboration. So again, collaboration and sharing best practice has happened across the piece. So phase 2 is about implementation. And what we have is a suite of 5 qualifications that pretty much fit every light vehicle requirement in the sector. It starts on the left there with an awareness qualification, which is for front office staff and people in and around electric vehicles, so they have a basic awareness. And then the second one is about hazard management for the emergency services and people recovering vehicles from the roadside. So whether that's in an accident situation, a breakdown situation, the emergency services and others that pick up vehicles at the roadside need to be aware of the dangers and qualified to make sure they know what they're doing. So that's the first stage, if you want, in employers meeting their corporate responsibility, and also the individuals having the skills they need to be able to find the data to understand how to make that vehicle safe to lift in whatever situation they're finding it. And then we have the 3 core qualifications for technicians. So these can be applied to existing technicians or bolted into the MA approach so that youngsters can be fully qualified on electric vehicles. It shows career progression, and the 3 qualification areas are firstly routine maintenance activities. So that's making the EV vehicle safe and ready for routine maintenance. That's where a lot of the work happens in the workshops, whether it's an independent garage or a dealer at the moment. And then we move to the next level up, which is about vehicle system repair and replacement. And this is an important part where we start to get into the diagnostics and fault finding. And then we take that a stage further with diagnostic testing and repair of the hybrid high voltage system. So this is about master technicians working inside the high voltage system, which includes batteries. And those 3 qualifications there for the technician lead to IMI TechSafe. And I'll explain to you what that model looks like and how important that's been on this journey in Scotland to keep people up to date. So the IMI TechSafe process is firstly to identify the gaps. So train to the gaps, which is relevant for the individuals and cost effective for employers. Where possible, deploy e-learning so that we start to get the base knowledge in place. And this also goes some way to reducing anxiety, especially for technicians that haven't been in the training environment for a number of years. And then when ready, train with the IMI approved centre, as we said in phase 1. So we've got all the trainers in a great place. We've got quality training and assessment happening. So that the section 4 there is for the individual to achieve an IMI, a qualification or accreditation, which is ever appropriate. And that will also be at the correct level for that individual, because the section 1 of this model actually identifies what the best fit is from a qualification perspective. And then register on IMI TechSafe. So in addition to achieving a lifelong qualification, which we know is important, we also register them on the IMI Professional Register and gain TechSafe recognition. But that's only for a 3-year period. And this is a really important part of the process. What that drives is section 6 here, which is around TechSafe CPD. So to ensure those technicians now working on electric vehicles stay up to date with ever-moving technology, then there's a requirement to do 30 CPD hours of upskilling in a 3-year period. And that can be done in different ways. At an IMI approved centre where they've got approved CPD programs that keep people up to date, or that can be done online with e-learning that's relevant to that particular CPD requirement. Thank you for listening. I hope that's been insightful. A very short session and presentation, just to show you some of the collaboration that's gone on between SDS in Scotland, Transport Scotland, ESP, SMTA and the IMI. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Steve. Now we've got Jim Brown in his seconded role as Strategic Projects Director for the Skills Academy at the Michelin Scotland Innovation Park.
The Skills Academy is really important, I think, on a number of fronts. It's important for the Michelin Scotland Innovation Park and the companies that are looking to locate here. It's important to Scotland because it will be a centre of excellence for Scotland in developing the skills that industry needs. It will tie in with the innovation agenda. It will look at the future skills. It will help to shape curriculum. It will attract youngsters into the sector. It will nurture youngsters. It will develop the pipeline of new talent for the companies on site, but the wider community, the wider company base around Dundee, and for the whole of Scotland, actually. So it's a really, really important role this academy has got to play. The unique nature of the academy, its position on the Innovation Park, the partners that are engaged in it, the ambitions for the academy, I just can't overstate the importance, significance, and the case study that's developing around this. It's really phenomenal, and I'm so excited to be involved in it. The vision of the MSIP Skills Academy is to provide a comprehensive and easily accessible learning and skills ecosystem to address learning and industry needs, demonstrating leadership in Scotland's transition to net zero. Our mission is that through a broad and flexible curriculum, from entry level to professional development and access to future technologies, generate the talent pipeline to meet industry's skills needs. The vocation offer at MSIP and hosting the Skills Academy here is totally unique, just due to the history of the site and the ambitions for the site. First and foremost, it's absolutely a massive space that we've managed to acquire at the MSIP, and the Skills Academy is going to be really, really exciting, really inspiring. The shift from the Michelin factory to the Innovation Park is really, really significant. The ambitions for the site, both to attract companies to focus on the sustainable mobility and decarbonisation, and the Academy's role in delivering the skills that these companies need, but much wider than that, supporting the wider community as well. The links into innovation is really interesting for me as well. How do we support companies, look at the innovation, look at new skills, particularly with new and emerging technologies that are coming through. And it's really fantastic to think that the Academy itself has a real role to play in that, in working with the Academy partners, both at the Dundee and Angus College, University of Dundee, Abertay University, and St Andrews University. Drawing on the pipeline of students that they have, from apprentices, pre-entry level even, right through to PhD, graduate placements, supporting the innovation through the knowledge exchange, etc., from university into these companies, many of which will be startups. So the whole focus for the Academy will be around the sustainable mobility and decarbonisation. They will have everything on site that supports that, everything from your low carbon transport, hydrogen, manufacture, Industry 4, robotics, automation, but also looking at the more broader side of this with energy efficiency, micro-renewables, insulation. We will have all of this on the park to support companies on the Innovation Park, but also wider within the local community and of employers to develop these future skills that they need. The curriculum at the Academy will be everything from the inspiring youngsters through STEM challenges, engaging them in really interactive, hands-on exercises and experiments and challenges, all the way through to the PhDs. The Skills Academy will have a real role to play in supporting the transition to net zero. They focus on sustainable transport and sustainable mobility is really central to this. Transport is one of the highest contributors to the carbon footprint, but much wider than that, as it will support the micro-renewables, the insulation, energy efficiency measures. It will look at the hydrogen agenda. It will focus on the wind and renewable energy. So overall, it's got a huge role to play. If you align it with the Scottish Government's Climate Emergency Skills Action Plan, it will address 4 of the 5 priorities that have been identified within that plan. And the only one it won't touch on is the land-based industries. So overall, it will have a huge role to play.
Next, I'd like to welcome Nigel Holmes, CEO for Shivka. Hello, Nigel, and welcome. Can you tell us a bit more about the Scottish Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association and what you do?
So, Rachel, yes. So the Scottish Hydrogen Fuel Cell Association, we're a trade association, and we're here to support the growth of the hydrogen and fuel cell sector, working with our members. And one of the key objectives now is to try and make sure that we get as much activity developing with hydrogen and fuel cells in Scotland as we possibly can. And the reason is that by deploying hydrogen, by using fuel cells, we can actually reduce carbon emissions and we can make more efficient use of energy.
Great. So where do you see the skills required within hydrogen?
So, hydrogen is a gas. It's a gas in the same way as we might use natural gas for heating homes and for cooking. And in fact, before we had natural gas, Towns gas was made from coal, and Towns gas was actually about half of Towns gas, 50% of Towns gas was hydrogen. And what we now see is an opportunity for the use of hydrogen, not produced from coal, but produced from renewables, from low carbon sources, to displace the use of natural gas and to start to heat homes and to allow people to cook, and also going beyond homes, using it for transport, so displacing the use of petrol and diesel. So what skills do we need? Well, actually, many of the skills we already use in installing, maintaining, developing the heating systems in people's houses, cars, maintenance of cars, trucks, vans, buses, all of these skills that already are used for many of the applications we use on a regular basis. We need that for the hydrogen economy as well.
Great. So this session is all about low carbon transport. What role can hydrogen play?
So what we have to do with transport is to try and stop burning fossil fuels as part of moving people and moving goods around. And electrification is already being used for electric cars, and that's going very well. But the use of batteries could be a limit when you start to look at much larger vehicles like heavy goods vehicles carrying loads over long distances, buses running 18 hours a day on service routes. And this is where hydrogen can actually be used together with electric powertrains to actually decarbonize the heavy duty vehicles, the heavy vehicles. It could be vans. In some cases, it could be taxis that are run for long periods of time. It allows a more flexible storage of the fuel, longer range, but with the same benefits that you get from electric vehicles, which is essentially zero emissions, and actually from a driver's perspective, less noise and more comfort.
Thanks very much, Nigel. That's been really insightful. Thank you.
Thank you.
My colleague Wendy Finlay is now going to tell you a bit more about what we are doing to inspire the future workforce.
Hi, my name's Wendy and I'm ESP's Programme Manager for STEM. We've heard today about significant changes and developments in the motor industry and the skills which the future workforce will need in order to design, build and maintain low carbon vehicles. Technology is advancing so quickly, as you can see from the slide here, that today's cohort of 12-year-olds will do jobs that don't even exist yet. It's therefore imperative that we inform young people about these future job roles and the academic requirements that they will need in order to fulfil them. But we also need to reassure them that STEM skills are STEM's adaptable skills for life that they will use throughout their future careers. At ESP, we've delivered a number of activities, whether it's an underwater ROV build through subsea schools or a big science and engineering event such as the Big Bang or Step Into events. But it's critical that young people that attend and get involved in these projects and events understand the wider world of work through them. Some of the transportation activities that we've run can be seen here, whether it's the current Arcola hydrogen car project, which is running in the 7 cities of Scotland, the Bloodhound Race for the Line, the Green Power electric car, which is designed, built and raced by students, or something as simple as an MTA kit build, which provides a rubber band powered dragster. Also, ESP deliver the IET First Lego League, which this season has a transportation theme called Cargo Connect. All of these activities, as well as being linked to future job roles in industry, provide wider skills such as communication and presentation skills, team working, project management, but most importantly, if we're going to inspire the next generation, they all need to be fun. We deliver these activities through Scotland's 13 regional STEM partnerships that are coordinated by the colleges. Membership of these partnerships, as well as the colleges, comprises universities, developing the young workforce, local authorities, STEM ambassadors via STEM Learning and CERC, but most importantly, Education Scotland, who can advise on what works and what doesn't work in schools, but also who can help curriculum align activities so they can be more easily adopted by teachers. I'm going to conclude today from a quote from Carl Sagan. Carl died in 1996, but his words are just as relevant today. In order to ensure that Scotland stays at the forefront of technological innovation and design, we must ensure that we inform and inspire the next generation to study the subjects which will give them the skills to support Scotland's STEM-based industries. Thank you.
And finally, ESP's Roddy Scott to tell you about the activity we have been doing with our automotive training network.
Thanks, Rachel. In 2016, we met with 15 colleges with automotive departments and immediately agreed to establish our automotive training network. This network has turned out to be our most active, with continual development aimed at supporting the automotive sector as it upskills for electric vehicle technology. That said, the first development was actually an MOT tester training, with a small number of the colleges identifying an immediate need for their local area. In 2017, ESP used the Low Carbon Training Fund to support some initial electric vehicle CPD training for college staff. Then in early 2018, we met with Transport Scotland colleagues and began working closely on a programme of building capability and capacity in the colleges to support local independent garages. Now let's look at what we have achieved and currently working on. Funding from Transport Scotland has allowed ESP to invest in curriculum and equipment as shared resources for our automotive training network. We've bought high quality cloud-based learning linked to the car train and truck train rigs, and that allows hands-on training with over 100 hours of practical work. 12 high voltage lockout trainers have also been purchased so that trainees can replicate the safe isolation of an electric or hybrid vehicle. Going forward, we'll have a strong focus on hydrogen fuel cell skills, specifically in the transport sector, and we've purchased training equipment again as a shared resource for colleges to use across Scotland. Funding has been available for our colleges in the network to run local awareness events for garages to inform them of the training available and how to access this in their own area. In 2019, ESP, with support from Transport Scotland, launched the Safe Working in Electric Vehicles programme, with the aim of purchasing training materials and the equipment you've just heard of in the previous slide. Over 100 college staff have now been trained, with several regional events organised for garages to attend and hear about their local training opportunities. ESP is now building on this activity with plans in place for the Highlands and Islands region, with more local colleges to be involved with awareness training delivery. We established our heavy duty vehicles training network in 2020 to focus on truck and bus electric vehicle training in line with Scottish Government objectives. This year we will embark on college staff CPD top-up training with vehicle manufacturers. And finally, as hydrogen comes into place as a fuel for the future, in particular in transport, we will be linking our CPD activity with our hydrogen training network.
Thank you to all our speakers this afternoon at our low carbon session. If you want to find out more about ESP, visit our website or email info@esp-scotland.ac.uk. Next up is our construction, energy efficiency and microgeneration session.